friends. Today we are going to read a book about a local place here in the Bay Area, and it's by a local writer. Her name is Melissa Reyes, and a local illustrator whose name is Robert Trujillo. Both of them live here in Oakland. Robert is from Oakland, and I believe Melissa is also from the Bay Area. But it is called Am Sausal Creek. And this is a creek that runs all the way through Oakland from the Oakland Hills, and it empties out into right outside of Alameda. So here we go. So just a little note before we get started. I thought it was really important to read a little bit of what the author says about this book. And she says, I wrote this book because I love that there are magical places like creeks right in the middle of a bustling city like Oakland. I think it's important to know the stories of our cities and our watersheds so we can honor our communities we live in, the people who have come before us, and the water that brings us life. So I think it's a really sweet story. This is a creek that flows under my house. I live right by it. And I hope you like the story and the beautiful artwork by these local artists. So here we go.
I am Sausal Creek. I have been flowing for a very, very long time. If you sit quietly upon my banks, you can hear my water rippling. If you listen carefully, you can hear my story. Did you know I once flowed freely? I rolled over rocks, wound down the hillside, and gave life to all beings. Frogs, fish, and countless animals lived amongst the willows, buckeye, and oak trees. I was strong and healthy. Back then, many groups of people lived here. I saw them travel up the hills and move around my shores. They gathered food, fished, and hunted. They believed all things were connected. They took only what they needed and offered prayers of respect and gratitude. Then new people came. They raised cattle, and the cows muddied my water with their heavy hooves. Yet still my water flowed. Did you know that once a giant redwood forest stretched across these hills? The trees had been growing for a long time and were thought to be amongst the largest in the world. Their roots held my banks together. The blanket of sticks and needles that fell allowed the rain to sink slowly into the ground. Then more people came. These people wanted to find gold. Very few did, so they began cutting the forest. Once the giant trees were sawed, they used me to float logs downhill. Within a few years, the last big redwood was chopped down. Without trees, the rain no longer sank slowly into the ground. Water crashed down and picked up dirt and gravel. I became so muddy the fish could no longer breathe or lay eggs. But I did not stop. My water still flowed. Did you know that there was rich, fertile soil along my banks? As I moved back and forth over time, nutrients gathered in a special place called my floodplain. More people came and planted cherry, apple, and pear trees here. The fruit grew well. I provided water to these orchards. Soon, I became part of a growing city. Houses were built on my banks. New and different types of plants took over all around me. City streets were paved over me and filled with cars. Dams and tunnels were built to control how I moved. I was surrounded by concrete and trash. My water became dark and dirty, but still flowed. Did you know there is a place where my water empties out into a bay? It passes through plants that grow in muddy wetlands. The wetlands act like sponges and clean the water as it goes by. The wetlands are also home to thousands of birds that travel through during the winter. People poured concrete over some of these wetlands to build an airport and a coliseum. I heard talk of filling in the entire bay itself. Fortunately, this didn't happen. People heard my rippling water and remembered that my water brings life. People wanted to live in a city where I run free. Now, there are places where redwood forests are sprouting back from stumps. There are places where concrete dams have been ripped out and pools dug so I can flow freely again. People care for the trout that still call my water home. They nurture forgotten seeds to bring back the plants that once grew on my banks. Each plant and animal that returns home restores the balance of living things. With these changes, I grow strong and healthy again. I am Sausal Creek. I've been flowing for a very, very long time. If you sit quietly upon my banks, you can hear my water rippling. If you listen carefully, you can hear my story. The end.
Yay. Thanks, friends. A little piece of Oakland history.